Welcome to this episode of Write Now, brought to you by WritersDepot.org, where your writing dreams meet your real-world needs, and both can survive.
Listen, you want to write characters, real characters? Then stop writing roles. Stop writing functions. A character isn't a chess piece you move around the board to make your plot work. That's hack work. That's television. Bad television. A character is a human being, and human beings don't know they're in a story. Here's what happens. You sit down. You've got your plot. Great. You know where the story goes. You know what needs to happen. So you create a character to make that thing happen. And you think you're done. You're not done. You haven't even started. What you've created is a puppet, a mechanism. And the reader isn't stupid. The reader knows it immediately. They can smell it. They're reading along, and suddenly they hit that paragraph where you're explaining everything. She was a student at such and such university until blah, blah, blah happened. And you know what the reader thinks? Oh, now's the part where they explain the backstory. You've lost them. You've broken the spell. You've reminded them they're reading a book, not living a life. And that's death. That's the worst thing you can do. This is the first key, the only key, really. Everyone in your story is the protagonist of their own story. Not your story, their story. The waiter who brings the coffee, he's got problems. He's got dreams. He's thinking about the rent. He's thinking about the girl who works the morning shift. He's not thinking, I'm here to deliver exposition about the murder that happened last week. Your villain, your antagonist, they don't think they're the villain. Nobody thinks they're the villain. They think they're right. They think they're justified. They think they're doing what needs to be done. You want to write a backstory? Start there. Start with the understanding that this person was alive before page 1. They had a life. They have a life. The story isn't the beginning of their existence. It's just the part we're watching. Some writers, they make these dossiers, questionnaires. What's your character's favorite food? What's their favorite movie? Their shoe size? Their astrological sign? That's horseshit. You don't need to know their favorite movie. You need to know what drives them. You need to know the fundamental principles of their life. You need to know what they want and why they can't have it. If you know that, if you really know that, you can answer any question. Favorite movie? You'll figure it out when you need to. But you need to know what shaped them, what hurt them, what made them who they are. Think about yourself. What makes you you? It's not your favorite food. It's the things that happened to you, the choices you made, the things you lost, the things you're still fighting for. Your character is the same way. Here's something nobody tells you. When you learn how stories work, when you peek behind the curtain, reading gets harder. For a while, you're reading a book and suddenly you're not in the story anymore. You're watching the author work. You see the seams. You see the structure. You see all the little tricks and techniques. And it ruins it. For a couple of years, maybe, it ruins it. But then something changes. You get to the other side. And now those techniques, the craft, that becomes part of the pleasure. You see what the author is doing and you appreciate it. You see the difficulty of what they pulled off. It's like watching a magic trick when you know how it's done, except the magician is so good, you're still amazed. But you've got to get through that period first. And your job as a writer is to make sure the reader never enters that period. Make sure they never see the strings. Make sure they stay in the dream. You hide the strings by making everything feel natural, inevitable, like it couldn't have happened any other way. How do you do that? You do it by knowing your character so well that everything they do makes sense. Not sense to you, sense to them. They're not acting to advance the plot. They're acting because that's what they would do in that situation. Let's say you need your character to make a stupid decision, a decision that gets them in trouble. You can't just have them be stupid because the plot requires it. That's lazy. That's visible. But if you've built the backstory right, if you know what they want, what they fear, what they're running from, then that stupid decision isn't stupid. It's the only decision they could have made, given who they are, given what they've been through. The reader might even see it coming. They might be saying, no, don't do it, but they believe it. They believe the character would do it. That's craft. That's invisible craft. You don't need to tell us the character's entire history. You need to show us who they are now and let us feel the weight of what came before. A character walks into a room. They see someone they know. Watch how they react. Watch what they say. Watch what they don't say. That tells us everything. The diction, the word choice, the hesitation, the anger, the fear, whatever it is, it's coming from somewhere, from the backstory. But you don't have to explain it, you just have to make it real. This is what makes books worth reading. The reader's unconscious mind is working, putting pieces together, figuring out this puzzle of a human being while they're busy following the plot. And when they're done, when they close the book, they feel like they knew this person, really knew them. That's what we're after. Most people, they write villains wrong. They write evil. They write cruelty for its own sake. They write the guy who wants to destroy the world because he's evil. That's what evil people do. That's garbage. Real villains, interesting villains, have reasons, complex reasons. They have motivations that make sense to them. They might even have a point. Look at the best villains in literature. Frankenstein's monster. He's not evil. He's lonely. He's rejected. He wants what everyone wants, to be loved, to be accepted. And when that's denied him, he lashes out. Is that evil? Or is that human? Who's the real villain in that story? The monster? Or the man who made him and then abandoned him? That's a question worth asking. Your villain should have a backstory that makes the reader understand them. Not agree with them, understand them. There's a difference. We can understand why someone does something terrible and still know it's terrible. Annie Weeks in Misery. She's a killer. She's a torturer. She's terrifying, but we understand her. She's alone. She's mentally ill. She's found something, someone to love, and she'll do anything to keep it. In her mind, she's not the villain. She's the hero. She's saving Paul. She's saving Misery Chastain. That's what makes her frightening. Not that she's cruel, that she thinks she's right. People aren't one thing. You're not one thing. You're different with your friends than you are with your parents. You're different at work than you are at home. You're different when you're angry than when you're happy.
Your characters need to be the same way. They wear different hats. They play different roles depending on the situation. And those roles should come from who they are, from their backstory, from their psychology, not from what the scene requires. This is how you avoid characters who feel schizophrenic. Characters who act one way in Chapter 3 and a completely different way in Chapter 7, and the reader doesn't buy it. If you know the fundamentals, if you know what drives this person, then all those different behaviors will feel like the same person in different circumstances. The way you act different in different circumstances, but you're still you. The book isn't the beginning of the character's life, it's just where we start watching. So what were they doing before? What was their normal life? What were they interested in? What were they worried about? These things don't go away just because the plot shows up. Your character has a job, or a family, or hobbies, or problems that have nothing to do with your story. And those things should be visible. They should matter. When something interrupts their life, when the inciting incident happens, they don't stop being themselves. They don't stop caring about the things they cared about yesterday. Most of the time, they don't even know they're starting a story. They're just dealing with what's in front of them, the same way you deal with what's in front of you. Here's something interesting. Your antagonist doesn't have to be ugly, physically or morally. In fact, making them attractive in some way makes the story better, more complex, more real. Hannibal Lecter. He's a cannibal, a serial killer, one of the most evil characters in modern fiction. But he's brilliant. He's charming. He's cultured. He's fascinating. We're drawn to him, just like Clarice is drawn to him. And that's disturbing. That's the point. Evil doesn't always look like evil. Sometimes it looks like sophistication. Sometimes it looks like intelligence. If your villain has some redeeming quality, if there's something about them that's appealing or admirable, the conflict becomes more interesting. The reader can see both sides. They're more invested. Because in real life, that's how it works. The people who hurt us aren't cartoon monsters. They're human beings with good qualities and bad qualities. They're complicated, just like we're complicated. One more thing, an antagonist isn't necessarily a villain. An antagonist is someone who opposes the protagonist. That's all. They might have different goals, different values. That doesn't make them evil. Severus Snape. In the first Harry Potter book, he's the antagonist. He makes Harry's life difficult. He seems cruel, but he's not the villain. He's actually protecting Harry. He's actually one of the good guys. He's just an antagonist because his goals and methods conflict with Harry's understanding. And sometimes your protagonist can be the villain. Patrick Bateman in American Psycho. He's the main character. He's also a monster. So don't confuse the terms. Don't assume antagonist equals evil. Think about what role each character is playing and why. Here's what it comes down to. You want to write believable characters with believable backstories. Stop thinking about backstory as a list of facts. Stop thinking about it as information to convey. Think about it as the invisible weight your character carries. Everything they've lived through, everything that shaped them, it's there in every decision they make, every word they speak, every relationship they have. You don't have to explain it all, you just have to know it. And if you know it, if you really know it, then the character will feel real. They'll feel like they existed before the story, and they'll continue to exist after it. That's all the backstory is. A life. A human life, with all its contradictions and complications and pain and joy. Write that. Write the life.
Not the dossier, not the questionnaire, not the explanation, the life. And if you do that, if you commit to that, the reader will believe everything. They'll follow your character anywhere, because they're not following a character anymore. They're following a person.
For more writing content, endless giveaways, and earning opportunities, be sure to visit writersdepot.org, because a starving writer is just so 20th century.